let's first learn about how this bubble sort works, like the logic behind it. So we're doing this in Java, but this could be done in any language here, but you just need to know the logic. If you know the logic, the writing the code part is not that hard. So since we're doing it in Java, so we're going to need two variables. We're going to need an I variable, which is going to be in our for loop, one of our for loop variables, outer for loop variables. I'll explain in a moment what that means. We're going to need a j variable, which is going to be I plus 1. I will also explain what this is, okay? And we're going to need a temp variable, which is going to hold a temporary data for us, or temporary primitive type in our case, because we're doing sorting an array of integers. So these are the three variables we need. So here's how the bubble sort works. So we start off at index I, which is going to be 0 for us, and this is going to be j because j is I plus 1. And what we do is we compare these two. So we see if I is actually greater than j, and what we do is we do a swap operation. So what that is we take this 9 and we put it in the temp, right? We put it in our temp here, and now we swap the j over to the I, and we swap, and then we put the temp variable, temp value, back into j. So in that case, we then have 1 and 9 here, right? And let me write to get blue. Okay, and we still have 4, 5, and 6 because we haven't checked with these. We haven't compared. Now our I is going to keep incrementing in our for loop. So this is going to be our I now, and this is going to be our j because I plus j plus plus. So then it'll be here, right? So now we're going to compare again. We're going to do the same thing, and we're going to put this in our temp again, okay? And we're going to swap, right? Like this. And this is the basic logic of how this works. So now we're going to have 1, 4, 9, and we're still going to have 5 and 6, right? Because we haven't checked with them. So now this is our new I, and this is our j, okay? Again, we see this is greater and this is less, so we're going to swap. And as you can see, this is we're only going to put them in ascending order. If we wanted to put in descending order, then we'd check the other way. We'd see if I was actually less than j, then we'd push it to the right, okay? So that bubble sorting can be enhanced in whatever way you would like. So here, now our new result will be 4, 1, 4, 9, and, oh sorry, my bad, 5, because we just swapped, right? So 5, 9, and now we have 6. Now we need to swap one more time. As you can see, as we see, this is our new I, this is our j, and obviously 9 is greater than 6, so we swap j here, and then we swap the 9 over here, and now we get 1, 4, 5, 6, 9. Now as we can tell, this is sorted already, but we need to go through one more iteration because now it will check if any of these are actually not in order, and then it'll swap. Sometimes this is probably one of the best case scenarios, so we don't actually have to swap anymore, and it's just going to check and get out of there as quickly as possible, right? But in other cases you might have to swap, like let's say maybe this was a 7 or something, right? So then we'd have to swap again, right? So but in our case, it'll just return to us that it is sorted. So and now, okay, yeah, so now we see that this is sorted. So this is what we want. So we want some variable I that tracks the current index, and we want j that's plus 1 of it, and we need a temp variable which is going to hold temporary data that we want to swap when we see that the I index value is less than the j index value, in that case where we swap those two variables. So now let's get started with the bubble sort. So I just have a class just called bubble sort, and I have a main method. So let's first get started with the main method. Let's just set everything up. So I'm just gonna make an array, call it numbers, right? And let's just give, I don't know, let's just give everything reversed, I guess, and then let's make the last one 10. Okay, so we can see if our thing's actually getting sorted. And okay, let's just make a static method because why? I don't want to make objects and do all of that. So I'm just gonna make a static method, a sort, and then just pass the array because we need the array to actually be able to modify it and like sort it. So sort, and then we're gonna do numbers because that's the array we want to sort, right? And I'm also gonna write the code to actually print out every element in our array, so we don't have to worry about it later on. And we can actually see if it's actually getting sorted. Right, so all we're going to do is we're going to print each element, and a line gives space between each element, right, and not data, numbers, right, Okay, so let's get started with the actual method. So what we want, as I said before, we want an I, right? I'm gonna do the double for loop structure. Okay, so there's an I here, and then we need j. I did say we want j equal to I plus 1, but it's not necessary right now. We're gonna do that in the for loop itself, the inner for loop. Okay, and basically wherever the checking happens is the inner for loop. The outer for loop is just for the current value, right? And we need a temp variable, which is going to be 0. Okay, so now we're going to make I, which is going to be equal to 0 because first index, right? And we're going to do I is going to be less than data.length minus 2, and I'll explain why in a moment. So why are we doing this? So we know the for loop the bubble sort logic. What it is that I is the current and j is the next one, right? Well, all we're doing is we're comparing between those two. So when, let's say for example, we get here and we start comparing, right? Okay, and then after we compare, we know 10's gonna get swapped over. I mean, 10's gonna remain, not gonna get swapped over. And we don't need I to actually go to 10. Why? Because what is j? J is I plus 1, but there's nothing after I. That's the last element. So it's not necessary for I to actually go all the way up to the last element. We can just make it go up to the second to last element, and we'll make our j go to the last element, right? So now we do for j, and we're going to say, as I said, I plus 1, right? And now we're going to make the length and like the range of it minus 1. So this is going to go up till the last element, and I is going to go up till the second to last element. And we're going to do j plus plus, right? Now here we're going to check. So what do we want to check? We want to check if the current index is actually greater than the next index. Okay? If it is, then we swap, right? So all we got to do is data.I is actually greater than data at j, right? Then we want to swap. How do we swap? Okay, so this is how it works. We actually first have to put our temp, we have to give our temp variable the value of the current index, right? And while we're doing this, I will explain in a moment after I do this line. So now we're going to modify the value at I. So why do we do this? Why would we keep a temp and we gave it the value at the current index and then we're later modifying it? Well, if we were to comment this out, if this was not in our code, well, then this wouldn't work, because now what we were basically, now all it's going to do is it's going to give the same value that was here. So for example, now our I, which is 9, right? It's gonna be equal to what's the value at j, which is 8. So it's just gonna be 8, 8, 8. It won't actually swap. We need to bring the value that was here originally, which was 9, right? We need to bring that over. So our next line, which is going to be data.j, which we had our temp, right? When we had our temp, we're going to put the value at j, so this value, and that would have become our 9 because our temp was data.I. But now this line doesn't even work because our temp's nothing, right? So that's why we have temp. So what we're doing, let's take again these two as an example. First line, what we're doing is, right? First line, I'll write comments out. First line, what we're doing is we're making our temp, right, equal to 9, right? Okay, and then what we're doing, right? And then what we're doing is second line. What we're doing is we're doing data.I. So we're basically making the 9. Then we're making the value at the first index equal to 8 because that's the value at j. So now what we actually have as a result is 8 and 8. Right, because this is also 8. We haven't changed the data at j, right? So that's what we have. And then what we are doing in the third line is actually bringing the temp, making the value at j. So we're putting it back in the array, if that's how you would think about it. So then what we're doing is we're making data j. So this 8 right here, we're making it temp, which was our 9, right? So now what we have is 8, and 9. Basically, we swap these two elements, and now they're actually in order. So if we were to run this would work just fine, and we'd see our array sorted. In fact, let's do that. As you see, everything is sorted in proper order. So that's how you do the bubble sort. It's not too complicated. It's the logic that really matters. This can be done in any language that you want, as long as you know the logic. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this, please let me know. I'm planning to do the selection sort next, so stay tuned for that. And thanks for watching.